Okay, meanwhile, let's have a go. Right, so the main topic that I was going to talk about today is NgRx Entities. Okay, has anybody heard of NgRx Entities at all?
Yeah. Yes.
Wonderful. Pav as well. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, and Matt. Yeah. Okay. Have you any of you three used it in Angular?
I hope so. I think we are talking about the same thing. You're talking about the class entity adapter, which you can pass any type of an object into your reducer and simplify the operations for adding, removing, etc.
My goodness, you've stolen most of my presentation there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, then then I did. Yes. Sorry.
No, not at all. I'm teasing you. It's nice to hear that you're familiar. So I will go over some of that because some of the guys here probably haven't encountered it. Okay. I think the main sort of thrust of what I want to talk about is how we can scaffold that. But I have got to do a bit of an introduction for others that haven't touched it so much. Matt or Paul, how much have you guys done with Entity?
Oh, sorry. Go on, Matt.
Go for it, Paul.
Okay. So yeah, the main app that we work on at the moment is completely entity based, pretty much.
Really?
Yeah, for the most part.
Well done.
That's really, really good. I'm dead impressed. So presumably you've got multiple entities.
Yeah, different feature states, and then yeah, entities within that.
Well, that's marvelous. Sounds like you haven't been standing still at all since I last worked with you, Paul. So that's really good.
Of course not. Well, that was quite a while ago as well, I suppose.
It was. Yeah. Okay. And Matt, how much have you done with it?
Yeah, we've done quite a lot as well. We just use the adapter, but then also we have multiple, obviously, feature states throughout our app, different lists, and yeah, it's just a nice way, I guess, to store ID lists, and when you update objects, you don't have to worry about it too much. Like trying to find
marvelous.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. So then, what I'm going to do for the others who probably haven't experienced it before, okay, I'm just going to do a brief introduction to what entities are about, partially to give you a sell, because I think it's, if you're doing NgRx, then I think the natural next step is entities. So for a lot of purposes, in particular, if you've got arrays to store. So I'm going to talk about that, okay? Right, so without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start presenting, if I may, so bear with me. Okay. Can you see my screen? Have you got a nice presentation? I think you have got presentation because I can see that now. Okay, so I think this is probably the main take home for people who haven't been introduced to entities before. They are better than arrays. All right, if you just take that, then we're good. All right, but I'm going to do some extras. All right, it's designed for keeping tabular records, and the main part about it is it reduces the boilerplate and bug opportunity for the repetitive processes that you run on tabular records. Okay, it's got something called an adapter that provides functions that are common table operations. It has a concept for fixed sort order and for a selected record. Now, I don't know if you guys have, all of you who've used NgRx have had this experience, but certainly I've encountered it a few times where using arrays, we have this concept of a selected record, and you tend to operate on that selected record, or you might iterate through the table, selecting each one and then editing those. Yeah, Entities does that, and it does it in a much cleaner way. So that's why it's worth using. And if you want to get stuck in after this, what I recommend is this link to the Angular University. Okay, I reckon it takes roughly 2 to 3 hours to read, and by that time you'll be nearly an expert. So it's worth doing. The only downside of it, and I will mention this shortly after, is that it doesn't, because it's written a little bit earlier than when they started using creator functions as mainstream. That's another interesting one. Have many of you guys used creator functions in NgRx?
I don't know what you mean by that. I'm not.
Oh, lovely. I'm glad you said so, Pavel. That's cool. It means I get to introduce it to someone who's ready to listen. Anybody else? Is anybody familiar with creator functions?
Nope.
I just wondered if Paul is. Sorry?
Are you talking about action functions?
Yeah. So you've got action creators, you've got effect creators, and you've got reducer functions instead of using a switch case.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Are you using that in your special project, your main project there?
Yeah, we use it, for everything, for the actions, effects, and reducer.
Cool. Glad to hear it. Right. Okay. So in that case, you can help me out when I run out of words, when I come to show those. So that'll be good. Right. Okay. Moving on. Right. This is just an introduction. Okay. But here's an example table record interface. Okay. And it's for a thing called a book. All right. Now, the important thing about entities is that they have an ID field. It doesn't necessarily have to be called ID, but by default, it is called ID. And it can either be a string or a number, but and its initial type by default is a string with a pipe and a number, so a string or number type. But normally my habit is to just type it as a string, but it's whatever you fancy. And then we've got this arbitrary key called title, okay, which is just an extra field in your tabular record. Now, how does that look when we've turned it into an entity? Well, here how it goes, right? Here we've got 3 book records, okay, and they all follow the same. Oh, sorry, I can't select that. They all follow. Can everybody see my mouse pointer, by the way? Great. Okay, thumbs up. So they all follow the same pattern. Okay, they are the same interface, but they are keyed with the ID value. Okay, so that becomes a key in the object called entities. And then on top of that, they've got a lookup that identifies the order of the table for display / sort purposes, all that kind of thing. These are listed in a way that it allows the entity to automatically turn itself into an array whenever it needs to. Okay, and then down the bottom, we've got a couple of fields, but in particular, the one that I felt was important, which is the selected ID. Okay, it looks slightly complex. It's physically more complex than an array, but I'm hoping to convince you that it's better than an array over time, shall we say. But I believe that the adapter functions, because they reduce the bug opportunity, they make this more efficient to use than an array. Okay. So moving on, I'm going to go to a demo or two. Let's see if it works. Right, I'll just come out of there. Go on, do that. Okay, let's escape out of there. That's better. Right, so yeah, I'm going to go to the NgRx Schematics. But before I get into that precise demo, I've just got to, oh, yeah, it's this document here. There we are. Now, whilst I'm in this demonstration, did you see on the meetup invite, there was a link to notes as they appear? Just out of interest, here's the website for our meetup, okay? And you can follow along if you like with what I'm showing you here, just by going to the link within the meetup invite, and then clicking on the link. It will take you to this website, and then you can get the latest raw notes via this link, or you can scroll down here, see some more information about what is already fixed on the agenda, but you can also click on the same link here. Here's a link that I opened earlier, and I've just started to mention creator functions, okay? There's a Medium article with a link in this document, and I'll be pasting that into the permanent place on the website after this meetup. But it basically gives you sort of a comparison of how creator functions work. Okay, so on the left-hand side, we've got a creator action creator function, and on the right-hand side, we've got the standard way of doing NgRx. Okay. And then if I scroll down here, we've got a reducer, and the new way of doing a reducer with a create reducer function. Okay, and instead of doing switch cases, it's a comma separated list of on functions that it treats as action clauses. Okay, and then if I scroll down a bit further, it's got the create effects functions as well. So you can see how that lays out. All right, we're going to see some more of those later, but I just thought I'd show them to you briefly. All right, moving back to part of my demo, I've also got links here to the NgRx schematics. So the schematics are effectively plugins for the Angular CLI to extend it to allow you to scaffold NgRx things of the various furniture surrounding schematics. So if you click on there, you'll be taken to the start of the schematics intro. It shows you how to set up. You do these installations, but it says to get the schematics onto your system, you have to go to the installation page. Okay, and you can go there and then install the schematics here, okay, or use one of the other commands. Right, so I did that earlier on an app, and then I started to use their schematic generators. Okay, I'll show you that here. Okay, and what I should say is that in the presentation, the document, and on the website, there are links to these repos. Okay, so if you want to download this repo and see what I've used the schematics to create, you can see it there. You can just clone the repo and see it yourself. All right. So what I did was I used several NgRx commands for this particular app, which is called the app itself is, well, it's a workspace because it's an NX workspace. It's called Scaffolding with NgRx Schematics, literally. Okay, and what I've focused in on doing is setting up the NgRx root commands in the app module, and I chose as many schematics commands as were required to bootstrap that automatically. And then I created a module that I then added state to using the schematics. So over here is my dummy module. Oh, sorry, that's the dummy model. Over here is my dummy module that I created, and then I've injected or imported the store for the feature, okay, that I'd scaffolded. And you can see, as I clicked on earlier, you can see the create reducer on statements. And what it's actually done is it's automatically built the adapter functions for me for every kind of standard table operation that you could want to do using a reducer on an array of records. Okay, so I say that in quotes because obviously it's not an array, it's an entity, it's a thing. Okay, but it still has the same operations because it's a table. I hope that makes sense. I found that the schematic here was useful because it helps show you all the possibilities, but that was really the limit of it, because what you'll notice is that the state, actions, effects, tests, model, which is the interface, and the reducer and the reducer spec files are all dropped into the same location as the module, okay, which is not really tidying it up, okay. And if I was going to start editing this and using this schematic, I would almost certainly lift and shift those files and then redraw their imports, or unless that was done automatically, into the right location where I wanted to keep it, a new folder. So just structurally, I'm not that impressed with the NgRx schematics, but I am impressed by the automated actions and the automated reducers that I get out of the box. I think they're cool, okay, because it just helps a newbie to have all of the actions on hand that they could access the adapter functions for, okay. So that's the first experiment. That's just a sort of demonstration of what the NgRx schematics do. But now I'm going to contrast it with what the Ngrx schematics do for you. Okay. But just before I do, I'm going to consult my notes. Yeah, has anybody got any questions so far? Okay. I wasn't expecting too many, but it's just a good opportunity to pause. If you have, you can interrupt me just at this second, so that you're welcome. But what I'm going to do is just actually highlight the amount of schematics that I had to run to generate all that code. It's not impressive because it's a lot, okay? And that's probably the reason I don't recommend this tool. All right, so it's obviously come up with some good quality actions and some good quality reducer functions, but really, apart from that, I'm not very impressed with either the structure or the amount of work that I had to go through to actually achieve that. Right, so here's a different project. Right, let's pick the right one. Hopefully it's this one. Yes. Good. All right, so this new project, and I'll highlight it on the notes again, okay? We've got a link to a GitHub repo that you can clone and see this at work. And I'm going to introduce you to that repo shortly because it has an extra benefit that you might appreciate, might not, who knows, we'll see. But I'm going to show you what is required with the narwhal stuff. So before I get into that, the other thing that I'm going to highlight is, yes, good, I've got it here. So the other thing that I've provided as a link to here, and there's a link on the Angular 2B's website, our meetup group website, okay, to a PDF that I've created. This is the one that I've copied to you, Maurice, by the way, because I did it outside of this meetup, that shows you the steps that you can go through to just do the schematic stuff to generate scaffolding for NgRx. And I'm now going to move that to a new window, and I'm going to shift that out of my presentation. So you know it's there now. You can go and have a look at that online if you want to right now. I'm going to work through these steps immediately because I think it's good to see this one because it's impressive enough. So I'm going to use the NX console, which is a plugin or extension for VS Code that I thoroughly recommend. I'm not sure, Paul, I know that you use IntelliJ, don't you?
Yeah, WebStorm.
Yeah, WebStorm, yes. And do you have the NX console available to you as a plugin?
I don't know. I don't have it installed. I don't know if it's available or not.
Okay. I know for a fact that it didn't used to be available as a plugin for WebStorm, but that might have changed by now because it's been around for a while. But
yeah, I used to run it just as a standalone app.
Yes, yes, that's right. Because it's an Electron app, you can actually download it as a standalone tool. So even if you are not using VS Code, you can use this as a separate tool. However, I've got it installed as an extension, and it's right here on this icon, the NX console. Can you guys see my text, by the way? Is that okay, or do you want me to zoom in at all? I will take your silence as okay to read. Okay. I'm going to click on the NX console. I'm going to click generate. Now, what I should say about this is the generate tool automatically selects all of the schematics that are available to you on your current project, and then allows you to use a GUI to build out the schematic command. Now, I like this because I'm really forgetful and I'm not a command line junkie. So I find it a lot easier to do it visually. So that's why I'm showing this off today. Right, so here we go. I'm going to go and add a narwhal Angular. So it's the narwhal schematic for Angular NgRx, okay? And the first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to create just the root state setup for the app module, okay? So in the name, now this is hokey. Just bear with me, it's completely hokey because this is arbitrary. You do not need this because I'm going to filter this out shortly. All right. But the next field that it's going to ask for is the module. And the module that I'm going to put in, as mentioned, is the app module. Okay. So I go over to here. And what I'm going to do is I've done a right click and I'm now going to copy the relative path. There's a shortcut for you. I'm going to paste that in. And I've now got the path to the app module. It defaults to a folder called plus state, which I will always recommend. But for the root state, that's not important because we're not going to actually build anything in that folder for the moment. All we're going to do is do, careful, press the right one, the root. Yes, that root tick box, and having the tick defaulting to minimal means that I'm only going to set up the root state. And the rest is just defaults, but it is not important again, because I'm only doing the root state. And I'm going to run that now. Here we go. Let's hope it works. And now it's asked me a question. Would I like to use the facade? Now, I will explain the facade, which I love, okay? But for the root state, it's completely unimportant again. So I'm just saying no. And off it goes. It does a lot of whizzing. Okay, hopefully this doesn't take too long. Okay, oh, looking good. Right, there we are, we've finished. Let's see what it's done. I'll go over to the Git changes, okay? It's built out my package JSON for me, and it's added all the NgRx tools, libraries that are required, okay? And then it's made changes to my app module and inserted all the required stuff into the imports. Okay, so I didn't have to think about what is the latest configuration and best practice for setting up NgRx state. I think that's very cool. And funnily enough, to do it with NgRx's own schematics would have taken 2 commands, would you believe? The second of which only adds 1 line, which is that. Okay. Right. So hopefully we can ignore that for now. But I'm not going to commit anything to that because I don't want to push that into my Git repo, because you'll see why later. But what I'll do is I'll close down that one, and I'm going to close down the generate command again so I get a fresh one. I'm going to come back to my folder view, and now what I'm going to do is create a feature state for a dummy module that I created earlier. You can see the dummy module here. It's not up to much. It's not doing anything. I haven't got anything inside it. It's just a module, but I want to add some feature state to it. Okay. And I want to get something out of the box that I can immediately start working with. All right, so here we go. I'm going to use the NX console again. I'm going to click on generate, and then I'm going to go to, quick to mention, because I've just run the root state command, do you remember it loaded all of those NgRx libraries? That also includes the NgRx schematics, which come in with it. All right. And those are those now listed with it. However, I don't want those. I want to use the narwhal Angular NgRx generator, or schematic, I should say. I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to name my feature state the same as my module. So it's both called dummy. And now I'm going to right click on the dummy module and again do that copy relative path trick, so that I don't have to type all that stuff out. Okay, I'm going to scroll down my notes so that I can tick the right things. Okay, and what else I'm going to do? I'm going to use a create facade class for the feature. I hope you appreciate that one in a minute, but we'll see. And the rest, I'm going to leave default. Okay. Now, importantly, the default out of the box for the schematics comes with creators. All right, so I'm going to click that and off we go. Right, it's saying, is this the root state for the application? Right, the peculiar question, because I've just told it it's not, but I'm going to repeat my answer. So no. Okay, and off it went, it's done, boom. Right, let's see what it's given me. So first of all, inside the dummy module itself, it's loaded in the NgRx state setup, okay? And then inside a new folder that's just created called plus state, that's inside the dummy module folder, okay? So that's using the proper style guide rules, okay? It's created a whole bunch of files, including tests for as much as it can test, and a facade file that I'll talk about shortly, and some actions. Now, what you'll notice here is that the actions and the reducer are somewhat less than they would have been if I'd have used the NgRx schematics. And this is possibly one argument for using those schematics in its place. But personally, I disagree. I think it's good to just get a couple to get you going, and that's what we've got here, all right? But after that, really, it's better to be on your own, because you don't actually need all tabular functions in all applications anyway. So you'd end up deleting a bunch of stuff if you don't want it. And more particularly, something that it's good practice to do is to actually use much more personalized action labels. I've just recently seen a video from ngConf, which I've copied to you, Maurice. Okay, and they recommend that you label your actions in a much more sensible way that describes the individual event and where it's coming from. So perhaps even what component fired it as part of the bit that's in the brackets. Okay. However, I might get an opportunity to talk about that a bit later, so I'm going to just move on, and we'll hopefully come back to that. So heading back to the facade, right? Here it is in its naked form. This is what you get out of the box. Now, the narwhal concept is that if the components or modules or services that want to access your NgRx state or use it, either getting data from it with a selector or actually firing actions, if you stop them from importing all the individual files and then having to label them with a fake namespace and all that gubbins, you reduce the amount of work and the amount of friction to actually use the state. So what they've got here is they've actually hidden, or no, exposed, I should say, the store dispatch function as a dispatch function on the Facade. Okay, so that you import the Facade as a service, and then you can call it there. And out the box, it comes with a few selectors that are good for you, but you can add more. And there is a bunch of selectors that automatically come with entities, and it's got a yes, it's just got a very nice, easy format to use. Okay. Has anybody got any questions about the Facade?
No, I just want to say I really like it. That was something that was always missing from me, to actually put those observables somewhere separate where you're actually accessing from the store. I like that pattern. Please continue. Thank
you, Pav. I appreciate you saying that. That's it's good to have someone won over on that. That's good. Right. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to undo all of that business. Okay. And I'm going to offer some branches. So within this repo, if you chose to clone it, you can, but you don't have to at all. But the point being that I've got branches on there where you can see things in a before and after fashion. So currently the master branch has not got the NgRx scaffolding, so you can practice with it because it's already got the dummy module and it's already wired into the app module, but there is no state configuration. However, there's a branch where you have the root state already done. I'll just go over to that. So you can see the state. Oh, yeah, the state folder is empty on there. And over here on the app module, it's already added. It's already schematiced in. Okay, and then I've got another branch where the scaffold feature state has been added, which is what I just showed you. So it's both of those two schematics has run. And then finally, on top of that, I've done a very basic entity demo. All right, and I'm going to just show you that so that particularly for newbies who haven't done NgRx before or haven't used entities before, it's just a very quick way to be able to see how it could work for you, so that, and for something for you to break and play with without having to take ages before you get some practice. So feel free to clone this repo for that purpose. Okay, I think just to explain what's going on here, I've got an add rec function to add a record, and I've got a select record to create a selected ID. Now, what I've also done within my Facade, just for fun, is I've added an extra thing. Okay, I've added a way of getting the dummy actions namespace into the Facade, so that you don't have to import the dummy actions or the feature actions in order to dispatch them, because obviously we've got this dispatch function, but it requires a parameter of an action. And I thought it just might be more sensible to expose the dummy actions within the service so that you can just plug them into each other. I think there's a neater way of doing this, but I just thought I'd start the ball rolling and maybe we could talk about that. But in the meantime, here you can see the way that it can work. Okay, so we've got dummy state dispatch. So dummy state is the Facade service. Okay, we're calling the dispatch function, and then we're passing in another part of the dummy state, which is the dummy actions get selected. And in that way, the only import that I have to do to access the state is that. I hope you sort of appreciate why I've done that now. Any thoughts? I'd be happy to hear a negative on this if you don't like it.
I might just have one question. If the Facade needs to, let's say you have multiple stores in your application, you would then inject 2 different facades to then access from, yeah.
Precisely. Okay. So you just have multiple imports for each sorry, not that one. It's the facade here. Sorry, I was a fool. I highlighted the wrong import. Yeah. So it's you would import multiple facades.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So I'm just going to do a quick ngserve just for the newbies, so that they can get a grasp of this. We'll do 10 seconds on this, and then hopefully we can wind down to some questions.
Tom, okay, I have the questions I'll ask during that.
Oh, marvelous. You could start if you want, but I tell you what, the example is ready. So here's one I made earlier. Okay, right. It's quite a horrible component. This is my app component. It's got no router. Over here, I'm using the JSON pipe to display my selector. I'm just going to quickly show you that in the template to just show you how simple it can be. Not that it's pretty at all, but you can see here. Here's all my entities, and I'm using, so the entities are the selector, okay? And then I'm using async pipe with a JSON pipe in order to display it. And then over here, I've got a selected one, and I'm going to display it with the async pipe and the JSON pipe, okay? And let's pop back. Now let's give it a data. Do you remember we were talking about books? So we need a book title. So I'm going to start with a book title 1, but I'm wondering if you guys could give me another book title.
Harry Potter.
Lovely. I like it. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, we've got Harry Potter, and we've got another book title. Okay, and you'll see that the ID is coming in as just the field that I've entered. It's completely arbitrary. Don't listen to me, because I've used it as an idea. I should have given it the field in the title as the form. But most importantly, that's the ID now. I'm going to click select. Okay, and now you can see my selected record is Harry Potter. All right, and what I can now do is, if I wanted to do book 3 as my next ID, I can click select, and you can see it's tried to select something that doesn't exist. But if I add it, it now appears as the selected record. Okay, I expect you can understand why it does that. It's quite simple. It's because there's no logic, no blocking to selecting a record that doesn't exist. It just puts it into the state. Okay, any questions about that state? No, okay, that's wonderful. Right, I'm just going to head back to here and then do some proper questions if we can. So here we go. Here's the 2 repos that I talked about earlier. That's the scaffolding with NgRx Schematics. Not a lot to say about that one. I wasn't that impressed. But the second one, the scaffolding NgRx with NX Schematics, okay, has those 3 branches for you to look at it should you want to. Okay. And that's me talking about entities. Does anybody have some positives or negatives to talk about entities, or any questions?
So Tom, I just have a question about the facade.
Please.
So what would the difference between a facade and a service be? So for example, if you wanted to split out all of your like sort of, state management sort of logic, or state management business logic, let's say, where would that be placed? Would you place that in a facade or a service? I think what we do typically is just place all our store sort of management and stuff like that all in the service, and the components are pretty dumb. They literally just have services injected into them. So the others are totally separate.
I'm with you. That pattern that you've got there is an extremely good one, Matt. Don't throw that away. That's good. But if you're going to use a facade, it is just a service, as you can see. It's just got this injectable, and it's, as you can see, it doesn't say provided in root, so you would have to provide it in your feature module, which is the purpose of it, because it's supposed to be feature specific. Okay. However, if I was to answer your question just using my own opinion, okay, I would say keep your service, but have the Facade service imported into it, okay? So that the idea is that it simplifies your selectors and dispatches, okay, but allows you to add your business logic in a separate service, but keeping it out of the way of the component. I don't know how you feel about that, and I'd love to hear.
I think that would make sense. I don't know, it might just be one more layer. I don't know, I think I'd have to try it out to see if that
I think there would also be no harm in doing it the opposite way around and building it, putting all of your logic into the Facade, or if you've already got it in a service, moving all the Facade logic into your service if you feel if it's a better fit.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I like the idea of having a Facade and keeping it simple. And out of the box, it comes with a spec that actually tests all of that stuff that came with the service. So it's like, there you go, job done. Okay, you've got all your unit tests. Now build a service that connects to it. But it's horses for courses, how you feel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks.
Well, you're welcome. Anybody else got any questions?
Not a question, but just a kind of point to note on the NX. What I liked, you said, Tom, it gives you a few, fewer things in your reducer when it's kind of bootstrapped.
It does, yes.
But what I liked about that was it shows that you can also have an entity adapter doesn't just need entities within it. You can store other stuff within your state.
Absolutely.
Whereas
yes.
the NgRx one seemed to just show, your adapter upserts and things.
Well said. Well said. That's a very good point, because it's good to draw the eye to the fact that the entity state is also able to cope with multiple other keys within the same object that are nothing to do with entities. It's just to do with your feature. So yeah, I think that's good. It's good to be drawn that way. You'll see on this particular branch, which is the entity demo where I've wired everything into the app component, you'll see that I've added 3 actions of my own. Okay, I'm only using 2 of them, but I added 3 for good measure. All right, and I just used the IntelliSense to actually find the adapter function that I wanted. So in truth, I didn't really need scaffolding to help me find that. Okay. Right. Well, hopefully you might be convinced to use entities rather than using arrays. But
I have a question, if I may. About let's say I'm calling 2 APIs and I'm gonna have multiple arrays in my reducer. I think this is just as a pattern from experience. Should I create a reducer per array or per entity adapter, or should I? Well, I know I can, but should I just declare 2 entity adapters in my single reducer and then store both of the arrays as key strings in the same?
That's a fine question. I do have an opinion, but what I'd like to do is actually put that to the rest of the team. What do you think, guys? And Eleanor, you can type the answer if you like. I'm just joking. You don't have to type that fast. Has anybody got any thoughts on that? Paul, I reckon you've probably got an opinion.
If I understood the question correctly, I'm not sure if I did. Would you mind saying it again?
Sure. So I think what I'm thinking about is sort of separation of concerns. So let's say I have 2 API calls. Each one of them returns me array of books and let's say array of prices. Would I create in the same reducer 2 entity adapters to store those arrays as a key string value, or would you create a reducer, an entity adapter for books, and another reducer with another entity adapter for the prices? I guess if we were to use entity adapter and call many functions on the same array, the reducer might get too large or too messy, and maybe we should create a reducer per entity adapter or not. I'm just thinking, what is the opinion on this? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I suppose it would be quite unusual to get prices separate from your, the other data on it. But I suppose if you're saying you're maybe requesting a bunch of IDs, and then you'd be using that to trigger a second API call to get your details, like your prices and things.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't have to be prices. Yes, just
yeah. I mean, I'd be storing that in the same state personally.
okay. So you in the same reducer, yeah, with 20 adapters. Okay.
Yeah, I've had trouble with that before. So at the moment, my opinion is to separate it. And because it's, as soon as you try and start extending it, then your reducer just becomes so large. Everything else just becomes quite a hassle to sort of maintain it. Well, if you just created a new, a new bit of the store, then that might be a little bit easier for all the maintenance and everything like that. But that's just I guess a personal opinion on what I've gone through.
I suppose one kind of similar parallel that we have in one of the apps we work on is we're dealing with investment funds, and we get an initial array of funds with a kind of a partial, well, to use TypeScript terms, it's like a partial of the interface. So we have some of the data for each fund, and then we make an additional request later on where we kind of ameliorate the given fund with those details. And we just store a flag which says in the state whether we have then retrieved the full details for that, and we just update the existing state to keep it all in one place. Therefore, you're using the same IDs. You don't have a separate location to store your IDs. That seems to work quite well for us.
I think depending on the size of your data and the amount of actions that you need per split on this sort of business concept that you've got there, Pav, it depends on how busy each is. So I think if they're both going to be doing a lot of operations, there's going to be a lot of events surrounding both of those concepts, then technically I would separate them, because the more you spread these things out, the more the less noise that you get in your reducer and your effects. And it's really good to keep those files as short as possible, because they always end up being enormous.
Thank you. That's also the more leaning towards, but I've seen also examples when people use multiple entity adapters in the same reducer for multiple arrays. So yeah, this kind of thing. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. The other thing I was going to say is, hopefully I've convinced you that schematics with Narwhal NX for NgRx are useful, and that makes it a good tool for creating multiple feature state modules. So you could really knock out a few entity states that are all entirely separate, and then just stitch them together as observable selectors that you can then pull together into one. Okay, but that's only a feeling. I think it's one of those things that you've got to suck it and see, because some things so closely tied that doing that ends up being a lot of work, because you repeat that a lot. Anyway, there we go. That's my thoughts. Is there any more questions on said subject? And what time are we? We're 8 o'clock. Would anybody like a break now, or should we just go straight on to the next topic? Because the next topic is to do with employment, or namely jobs and contracting. I've moved that up the agenda because I feel because of the lockdown and because of COVID, we really need to talk about this, and being together as a meetup group is really beneficial. We can leverage that. Are you guys up for ploughing into that, and then we could take a break after? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
All right, that's great. Let's do it. All right. So as I mentioned, yes, the COVID situation has certainly got me mildly nervous. I'm not spectacularly nervous, but it has sort of upped the tension level at least one notch, possibly several. Okay, and what I wanted to propose, I really should present my screen because it would help now. So let's do that. Okay, is things that we can do to make our lives better. Okay, things that we could do that might reduce our stress, but also things that we could do to improve our chances so that we don't end up unemployed at some point. Goodness forbid. I hope that currently most of us are fairly secure in what we're doing. I think the truth is that the IT market generally, so just any kind of computing, but in particular software development, is still going quite well. There's still plenty of jobs on the market. The only thing that I've noticed is that the niche jobs are drying out quite quickly. I don't know if you've kept your eye on the ball, but I think over the last 3 weeks, I've seen a massive tail off in Angular jobs, okay? And they're all full stack now. Feel free to butt in if you think I'm wrong.
I would agree with you, and I would say the rates as well pretty much
Good.
going down.
Well said. Yeah, I've seen, I would call it somewhere between 20 and 30% drop off. All of the top end rates have dropped out except for possibly one I've seen in 2 weeks. Okay, and that was a job in Exeter. I don't know if you've got a LinkedIn ping on that one.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Anyway, more to the point. As a contractor myself, I'm very aware of the fragility of my contract. I'm happy with my contract. I would have to say that because I've got colleagues here. But what's important is that we take care of our future. And I've got some suggestions here, and I just thought I'd plant these suggestions as thoughts, and then see if you guys have got anything you'd like to add to this, so that we can effectively use the power of our experience to help each other, just by suggestions and maybe things that we can do to help each other out. So I'm going to run through this list very quickly. First one, I think if you want to, you can hook up with me on LinkedIn. My link is right there. You don't have to necessarily write it down. You could just click through our meetup page and get to this shared link and then click on it. Okay. The other thing that you could do is become a presenter for this meetup group for one session or many. Okay. And the advantage of that is because it stays on meetup.com permanently, you can reference it on your CV. Okay. And that gives you kudos at interviews. All right. People treat you seriously when you've been presenting on topics that they're interviewing you for. Okay. That's cool. All right. The other thing that I can do to help you, and I'm sure Max, if he wasn't sick, would also say, but I am kind of assuming that, is that if you either regularly present or you do a smashing slam dunk of a presentation one-off, then I would be happy to give you a LinkedIn recommendation. Okay. I personally have been building recommendations on my LinkedIn profile, and I think they've helped a bit. I don't necessarily say that LinkedIn recommendations are it, because nothing is, but everything just sort of adds to the bargain. So it's every. Oh no, I was going to use the Tesco phrase, but everything that you do towards improving your profile, not just your LinkedIn profile, but your CV, your standing, all adds up and ultimately can help swing the choice of an employer or a customer in the case of a contractor. Okay, any thoughts else on what our Angular meetup group could do to help each other? Okay, I'm going to take that silence as my bullet points having been good ideas. The other thing that I think that we could do, if particularly in this chat right now, is if you've got any good recruitment agencies or any good contacts for various things, then it would be worthwhile if you'd be up for sharing them. And you guys who haven't got microphones, you'd be welcome to paste, any contacts that you've got. I'm going to show you a few links that I've got now. It'd be great if we could add 1 or 2 to this list tonight. But if we can't do it tonight, then this document's still going to stay here, and so's the website. I'll be making these notes permanent instead of just a Google Doc, and that they'll land up on this web page here. I'll take you to the top. Okay, so it'll land on this website here once this meetup's over, so that I can sort of create the markdown so it appears here. Okay, but these are just my volatile notes. That's why I work from a Google Doc, but it's open to all of you. So anyway, meanwhile, before we get into those contacts, I'm just going to suggest some other things that you can do personally. Okay, because I'm doing a few of these, and this is my recommendation. You might have a few more. So number 1, improve your LinkedIn profile and get recommendations. Mention that. Constantly update your CV. This is a key one. I think particularly on job sites, it's a really good idea to update your profile or your CV, because actually it brings you to the top of search engines. Switch on your LinkedIn profile to receive spam from recruiters. I've noticed about a 1% benefit from this. And boy, Paul, you get bombarded, don't you?
Yes.
Yes. So it's serious spamming with maybe a 1% benefit. Yeah, occasionally 1 in 100 recruiters will actually call you up with something good.
Or maybe 1% will actually have something relevant to your skills as well.
Well said. Exactly that. Or looking at your profile actually offer you a salary that is roughly in the range that you were expecting. Anyway, won't get into that too much. Right. The other one that I do recommend is look around you. Look, here we are in a meetup group. Maybe you can befriend one of us and compare your CV. Okay, but you can certainly compare your profile. By all means, link to mine and tell me what I'm doing wrong. I'd like to know. Okay, other things that you can do, okay, is focus your study on the skills gaps that you think you'll need for your next post. That's important, but I think that's sucking eggs, so I won't go into that. Here's some other things that I do. I don't know if you agree, but I recommend it. Create some GitHub projects, okay? So you've got a GitHub presence. Having little projects that demonstrate your skills, I give you kudos. I've had a couple of interviews where I've wiped the floor with them just simply because I've got GitHub presence and other people haven't. Okay, it's an easy win, just because it's free and it's a place to practice anyway. So why not? The other one's a bit harder, is contribute to open source projects. I do recommend this. It's a real tough call, particularly if you're a newbie. But if you can even do like I've done, I've contributed to the RxJS docs repo. So not the actual code, but I have added some comments to their marbles testing area. And that gets me kudos. I recommend that to anyone. Marvelous. Beer has arrived. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Cheers. Cheers, guys. All right.
I was just going to say all the points that you mentioned.
Hi. Hi, Maurice. Sorry, what was that?
I was just going to say all the points you mentioned are valid, and they're very good points, especially from the perspective of when I saw your, like Richard obviously was floating around CV, so I obviously come across yours from doing an internet search and having visibility of the fact that you do meetups, your GitHub, definitely put you in a better light than the other candidates. So by doing these little things, they definitely give you better visibility to the people that don't know you when they're looking you up.
Thanks, Maurice.
Can you ask if anybody actually found a job through LinkedIn? Just a yes or no. Doesn't have to be which one, but just a yes or no.
I nearly did, Pav. How's that?
Okay. Well, I would say I agree. I agree with your points. Definitely about the CV and about the GitHub repositories. Yes, but I don't know about LinkedIn because yeah, I don't know if that works. I sometimes don't believe it, and I know people can literally write anything on LinkedIn. You can even write you are a Google CEO. So I don't know about LinkedIn. So I was just curious if anybody actually managed to find a job for LinkedIn. I always found for a recruitment agency on those popular job boards, but never for LinkedIn.
I understand.
My experience on LinkedIn was that I didn't get anyone approach me. I approached somebody, and then I was able to secure an interview and a job. But I haven't been approached by somebody, because that's what people usually expect. But I just approached somebody else and linked in with them. I saw a job going. I linked in with the guy, and eventually I got the interview. So that's the only occasion. So,
did you know the person that you approached before?
Tenuously, just because we'd worked at the same company previously and we'd sort of crossed paths, but I don't think I actually met him physically.
Okay. Cool. One good story.
I can speak from experience. I got to the final stage. Well, no, actually, I got offered a job through LinkedIn. But yeah, I didn't accept it, but I did get offered. So that was obviously, going through an entire sea of recruiters, just reaching out, and yeah. So that's I mean, you have to deal with that, I guess.
Exactly. I think maybe this is
Just
showing
a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. I think the benefit may be less than 1%, and the spam level is definitely in the 99 point remaining. Yeah. So yeah, like you see, there's a sea to wade through. Sal, have you got anything to say?
I think it's a nepotism thing with LinkedIn, really, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm not sure about fresh contacts. I think it's usually through an ever-growing circle of people you possibly might be able to approach somebody.
Yeah, well said. I think that's probably true as well. I think the reason I use a LinkedIn profile is well, there's two actually. The first one is because I've been doing it for a long time. My recommendations now have an age, and because they have an age, they have a bit more kudos. Yeah, because they're not just this fresh crop of fake, oh, he's wonderful, sycophantic messages. They're from purposely chosen from mostly from people who've got backgrounds. So there's that, but I think also it's another way of just having your CV online, so you can link to it and just say, there you go, that's me doing live stuff. You can it's a bit more interactive than just having a CV document, but I keep that as well. Okay, right. Moving on. Oh, go on. Any more? Was there another one?
Yes, I think I was approached my current job actually, Legal in General, Aaron Berry, through LinkedIn. So it does work occasionally. I didn't have my CV active on any job boards either at the time.
Whoa. Funnily enough, I've been contacted by the Legal in General lady, and she just approached me at the wrong time, because otherwise I'd be with you guys. There you go. There's a story. Right. So yeah, open source projects, they help kudos. The other one that's an easy win, and I hadn't realized how easy until I tried, is write some medium.com articles. Okay. I might get an opportunity to show you one later. I've only done one, but it has been a positive experience, and I recommend it. And the last thing that I've added in there is a link to just an article that's some suggested basic Angular interview questions that I would say, although it's not necessarily a great article, it's a good idea to think about Angular questions for interviews. So why not have a preparation and spot your holes, spot where you've got information missing. One of the best places to fill those holes, and it comes into another topic that I would like to talk about, but I'm not covering just yet, and that is do the Angular style guide, read it, okay? If you've only read part of it because it was boring, read the rest of it, okay? Because when it comes to that interview, you're going to get asked questions about the style guide, all right? I promise you. If it's a worthy interview, they will ask you a couple of questions out of the style guide. So learn it. Don't learn it like times tables. You haven't got to be really lickety split, but just get a vague notion of everything. Okay, it's worth doing. But that's my views on things you can do. Now here I've got some information.
You've missed the last point there, I think, about the preparation. Another one. Well, you've got interview questions. I was thinking more like just general ones as well.
Oh, lovely. So interview preparation. What kind of thing are you? How would you phrase that?
It's a tricky one because I've spoken to a few of my friends, and everyone's got such diverse opinions on what should be asked at questions. Questions at interviews. So things like, you know, getting asked linked list stuff even, which seems incredible. Now, you know, especially for guys that are especially heavy on the front end, you just think, well, why? Do you know what I mean? Are you really writing algorithms all day? You're not, are you? So there seems to be such a breadth of questions. It's difficult to know where to focus the preparation.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Now, I although that is quite a scary thought, because it scares the hell out of me, because I don't know enough about algorithms, or for that matter, I don't remember enough about design patterns. Okay, the general ones, not just the Angular style patterns, because I'm pretty good at those. Yeah, the Gang of Four book is a good book to read, but blooming heck, is it heavy? I still haven't finished my full read of it.
See, I think it's to be honest, I think it's dated for what we're doing. You know, you look at it now compared to when it was released in the early 90s. You know, shoot me down if you think I'm wrong, please. But I think things aren't so inheritance based and object oriented. There's a lot more functional stuff and a lot more, you know, single responsibility where you just use an interface. You know, if you're using Angular or something like that, and you keep a simple implementation rather than, you know, factories creating stuff in derived classes and all that, and visitors and whatever you might be using. But I don't know what other people's opinions are on, you know, what questions are being asked. What questions are being asked in the crowd who've dialed in recently?
Good question. I'm not going to butt in. You guys pipe up if you've got any thoughts.
I would say that they normally like to kind of ask you questions like, what is service, what is a component, what is a directive, what is a module, what is this, what is this, what is that. I tend to usually interrupt and kind of try maybe to suggest if they could give me some kind of a problem and ask me how would I solve it, because I think this is what the programmer is going to do. And if they really need to know, you know, this is something that anybody can Google and just give you the definition. You should normally know the features of Angular, what is it made of, what blocks it's being made of and such. But I think I'm generally quite disappointed with quality of the interviews. I think most of the questions should be kind of open, so you can really discuss from your experience what things you have done, what problems you have solved. And then I think they should give you some practical tests that you can, I don't know, have 3-4 hours to write, show them exactly how would you approach those problems, whatever they're giving you, and then discuss it for the next stage about the quality of your code and the approach you have taken. But that's, I think I only had twice that kind of experience. Most of the time, it feels already like a lottery if you get the job, and then you have to obviously learn every possible question because they want either a book definition or God knows what. And at the end, when you get the job, they actually don't even, they don't ask you to write algorithms. They don't ask you to do that.
Nope. They don't use a single algorithm themselves, and they don't
Exactly.
exercise any design patterns whatsoever.
But I think it's just the economy and job market is so tough. The employers can be and HR can be as picky as they want to, and I think that's kind of the reason. I don't think it's really a problem with us or anything. I think it's just the way it is.
So Pavel, you were saying, sorry to hijack things, Tom. Pavel, you were saying sort of people are asking you sort of API specific stuff, well, framework specific stuff, I should say. Do you guys get asked more JavaScript general type things? You know, like ES6, Async 08 and all that?
I have, yes.
Yes.
Go on, Pav.
No, I mean, you're writing in TypeScript. So my question usually will be, why would you even write in JavaScript? It doesn't have strongly typed definitions. It's a key. You have to, debug it to actually see what's in the object. So they can ask it, but really, if you're a modern developer, you would use Babel or Webpack or something to compile a TypeScript to whatever ECMAScript version you need. Why would they even ask that, really? Unless they're that much behind. But yeah, they do.
Now, I'm still seeing people not, I won't say in the Angular world, of course, because they've been TypeScript for years, but outside of that, it's not always TypeScript, and people will just use ES6 or,
Not recommended, not professional. Yeah, like they want to. Okay.
Well, no.
They might use TypeScript, but then just use any everywhere. I mean, that's just specification, really.
Okay, so I think I've probably taken enough time of yours, Tom. Sorry.
No, you haven't. I really enjoyed that. I think this is really important issue. It's quite bothering, the kind of questions you get. The truth is that in the interviews that I've had, you've got some nice interviewers and you've got some nasty ones. Mm-hmm. And I found that the really nasty interviews are usually the places that you don't want to work for anyway. So it's good to fail.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good. Good to know. Keep an open mind on things.
I think from my experience, many of the interviews I've had, even just for short contracts, they've been quite wishy-washy and quite abstract, and they're asking you. I had one where a guy said, "Okay, I have this directive, changes the color of the text or something. How do you test it?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm a developer. Let me express this in code, not just in conversation. You haven't given me hardly any details about what it does or how it works or anything. So you want me to run through like how I would write my spec file rather than just typing it? It's not a good way to assess someone's ability. People don't work that way for a start.
I've often seen it as a weakness in the interviewer that they ask that type of question anyway. So yeah. Good. All right. Do you mind if I hop on? Yeah.
Carry on. Yeah.
Accelerate a little bit. Has anyone got any other job site links apart from those that I've got here that they recommend for Permi jobs?
I can't see the one you recommend.
Oh, sorry. I forgot. I'm not sharing my screen. How embarrassing.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Have that now. Have a look at that, Pav.
Yeah, it's loading. Okay, I think yours are probably better than mine, more specific. I go to read, total jobs, Indeed. Yeah, those kind of, but yeah. CV library.
Okay. I'll put the correct link in later. I thought of Indeed. That was it, not LinkedIn.
Read, the one on the
Read. Yeah?
Read, Indeed, total jobs.
I think Read is an agency, isn't it?
Both. Well, they have a job site portal, yeah, and other companies and recruitment agencies advertise there. Read.co.uk, yeah.
There's also Wired Sussex, which I haven't used in years, but I think that's still going.
It is.
And it's local, of course.
I've always found it a little bit subpar, but yeah, before, when I was a lot younger, I used to find it above me, and then suddenly when I started looking, it was below me. So I thought, what the hell? Anyway, yeah, I've got some recruitment links here. The ARC recruitment, they're based in Brighton. I don't know if you guys have used them.
Oh, Opus Recruitment, yes, I heard of them.
Yeah, Opus is quite good. I haven't found them to have excellent rates for contractors, but they're pretty good. Okay, moving on to contracting, right? I've just bunged a couple of links that I use. Okay, I don't know if you guys want to add to that at all.
Oh, a good accountant, yes, I would like that. But not mine. I would like to use yours if it's a good one.
My one's expensive, I warn you, Pav. Okay, but the advantage about their expensive is it includes the Bower and Control membership, and it includes all my insurances as well, my indemnity and all that business.
I have Sapphire Accounting that take 170 per month. I'm incredibly disappointed, and I'm leaving them.
Oh, 170. Oh, in that case, you're right in my ballpark. So yeah, go over to them, mate.
But I'll pay for quality. That's exactly what I want. So, yeah.
Okay.
What about you guys? Have you tried Crunch before? Do you know it? You know, the software company in Brighton.
Oh, I've heard of them, but I've never used them.
Yeah. Well, I find them. Well, the software I find isn't bad, and I have to interact with them every so often. They've got a bunch of accountants that sit behind the software developers. They're based on Preston Street, Preston Road, I think. Yeah. I think they're like £85 before VAT. So
that's really cheap.
It is. You know, you can upload stuff through their system, and you know, do your transactions, and you can get a feed from your bank, your business bank account as well. Which is good. So you can do all your reconciliation in the system, which you've probably got in these other systems that you're using as well. So
yeah, most of them have, but then again, some of them, the actual UX is a bit poor. So it all horses for courses. So do you reckon it's a good application?
I think it's quite good. Some stuff I think still possibly needs to be improved, or it's just that I just don't know how to use it well enough. But some things seem a little bit tucked away. But they've got tons of documentation, and they've also got quite a lot of recommendations what you should do as a contractor, or as an umbrella company, or as a self-employed person as well. They've got tons of articles on their website, and when you do a search, they seem to come up on Google when you're looking for stuff regarding accounting.
I think for the price, that's good value. But having said that, I like having my hand held a bit more because I'm relatively new to contracting. So I'm
yeah, me too. I've only been doing it like a year and a half, so I've been doing it less than you, Tom.
Oh, not much. Not much.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Yeah.
Having said that, these guys here, I totally recommend them. Right? You know, everybody's worried about IR35. It was postponed for a little while. Okay. Getting a review by Baron Cottrell on your next contract is so worth it. Okay, they really do clean things up, and they don't beat about the bush either, because they've got kudos. So if you just put them in touch with the people who are putting your contract together, rather than trying to speak for them, they will bat for your wicket, and they're really good. They're not cheap if you want to employ them directly, but I go with KB Accountancy, and they include that. They include at least like 2 or 3 reviews a year. So it's well worth it. That's my thoughts. Okay. And then finally, I've got this recruiter link for contracting. Has anybody else got any other contractor links that are apart from the ones up here? Don't worry if you haven't, it's not a test. Okay. So I think that ends my thoughts on the job stuff, Paul has left a comment about Churchill Knight that I just copied from it here, and he said they do everything for you, and the dashboard shows you your available funds to take home after upcoming taxes, which is good. It's good. Mine does too. I use a thing called Free Agent, but yeah, it's good to know that, and it's important to have it on your front page, I'd say, because you want to know how much cash you got.
Yeah. Sorry, I just typed it because I didn't want to interrupt your guys' conversation.
Yeah.
I used them for like 5 or 6 years and was really happy. You have a dedicated account manager who's always at the end of the phone. And yeah, because they have a relationship with the bank that they set up your business account with, they have like read-only access basically, so you can always see live data of what's in your account. It might be the same with others, I'm not sure.
I think it is with some and others not. With mine, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I can highly recommend them.
Good. And how much are they per month, if you don't mind my asking?
They had a referral scheme, so my cost kind of went down over the years as I referred people. So I can't remember what they start off at. It's maybe like $150 a month or something like that.
Oh, right, similar ballpark to what we're talking here. So Crunch is the cheapest by the sounds of it. Okay, so I'm going to put cheapest against that. Yeah, KB Accountancy is in the same ballpark as Churchill Knight. Okay. Right. Okay, so that's the job stuff. I hope that some of those thoughts have maybe made you feel. Here's a thought. Maybe I can improve my stature so that should I need to look for a job or a contract, I can do something about it, because it's good to be proactive in this current environment. Yeah, that's my thoughts. Are you guys up for doing another little while? I could either I've got enough material to keep going for 30 minutes, but I think probably we need a little break. Would you like a 5-minute comfort break, and then we come back, or would you are you feeling tired? Was it a heavy day, and do we need to go home? Oh no, you are home.
I would welcome a break.
Yep, breaks are good, aren't they? Right, so let's come back in 5 minutes, which will put us at 2042. Is that all right? Okay. I'm just going to put down my microphone. You can still watch my bedroom if you like. I might actually turn my video off. It would be sensible, wouldn't it? Then I can walk around in my pants. Okay, see you in a minute.
Thank you.
Sorry, what a vision.
Cheers.
Hi, Sal.
I'm eating something.
Oh, feel free to.
I'll mute myself.
Sal, have you been able to get on the Angular 2B's meetup group Firebase app website?
No, I haven't looked.
Okay, so I recommend that you get on there because it's got some links to the stuff that we've been dealing with tonight. And to get to it, you just go to the meetup.com page. Yep. If you go to tonight's event, there's a short link on there, right there. Okay. I suppose what I ought to do to make it easier for the other guys is I'll paste it into the chat.
Ah.
Well done.
So have you built an app that is a blog on Firebase? Is that the idea here?
Oh, what a fine question. It's actually, it's using Firebase because they offer free hosting. That's basically why.
Looks wonderful, by the way. Very nice.
Oh, thank you. It's actually an Angular app that's hosted on Firebase. They automatically give you out of the box redirecting to the index page so that lost routes bounce back to the Angular app.
Okay.
Okay. So it
basically, if you've broken anything, it will go back to the root.
Yeah, and if you save and if you bookmark any routes, it comes back to the app. So that's what the rewriting is about.
Okay.
So it's one of the few free offerings that does that out of the box.
Oh wow!
So that's why I recommend Firebase.
Have you used it in any apps then, as in like commercially Firebase?
No, I haven't actually. No.
So I was wondering because it seems to be quite an interesting concept having this NoSQL database and storage and everything in the cloud for free, and it gets you sort of hooked. And
exactly. And then as soon as you start making some decent traffic, they start hitting you with massive charges. It's not very good for scaling. So
cost wise,
yeah. If you get up into 20,000 visitors a day, it's going to hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
So have you tried? What's the other one that's similar? But Heroku. Have you tried Heroku?
No, I haven't.
I followed along with some course that was using that, and what they did was they were using MLab's Mongo database in the cloud and Heroku as the server layer. So where you're using Firebase for your server layer and storage in one, they used MLab because you can use MLab and it will deploy to either of the three big cloud platforms for storage. So AWS or Microsoft Azure or GCP. So it'll do that. for the MongoDB instance. And then you basically set yourself an account up on there, and you can create some database instances to talk to. And then you can deploy your app on Heroku, much like you've done on Firebase. But it's two separate clouds rather than one.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah.
Well, Firebase is just a company that Google bought in order to get into this sphere.
Okay.
And they've been rewiring for the last couple of years.
Right.
Because it didn't follow Google standards, but they just bought in on it. So,
okay.
It was a good platform already. So
you've been using it for a while, yeah?
I've been hosting this site on it for about a year and a bit, because before I tried a couple of other ways. I was piggybacking on another paid thing, and then later I was using GitHub Pages. I don't know if you know about that.
I know it's hosted on GitHub, isn't it?
Yeah. So
you write markdown files on there, is that right?
Well, you can just, every commit that you do on GitHub becomes the deployment, so it's really good, but it's only good for flat static sites, because it's got no, you can have JavaScript, but it's got no URL rewriting. So you constantly end up falling off the web page if links and things like that. So anyway, there you go.
Okay.
But yeah, I do recommend Firebase just for the freeness of the low traffic that we've got for a site like this. Okay. Well, we haven't, and nobody's come back as yet. Should we get rolling? Because this is
there we go.
So I might as well just do. Oh, look, hello, Stephen.
Oh, I'm looking at your notes. Yes.
Oh, welcome. Right.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a few notes there, isn't there?
Well, I don't know then.
What, you managed to break it?
No. There we go. No, I didn't. I was just, okay, so that's what you've done. Right. So you're linking off to your Google Doc. Cool.
Yes, that's correct. Exactly. And this Firebase app it's an Angular app, but it's got a listener on the root change, so it just scrolls the page instead of going to another rooted component.
Oh, okay. Okay, so just like a normal inline link sort of thing. Kind of
like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very similar, but it's fake. So it's not. Well, under the hood, it's actually pulling in Markdown pages.
Right.
Yeah, I suppose I ought to do a talk about that sometime, because it's got a couple of big quirks in there. Anyway, more importantly, shall we seeing as you're here, Stephen, and the other guys are probably still getting a beer, that kind of thing. I've got beer. I've got second beer now. Cheers. Right.
Excellent.
Right. So what I'm going to do now is just talk about I'm sharing a screen at the minute. Talk about these two last agenda points. I mentioned in the job stuff that one of the good things to do is to create your own Medium document. And just so happens that of late, I've been talking about Angular standards again. And I do this several times, well, not several times a year, but at least once every year with whichever teams that I'm working with. And we always have a conversation about what standards we should be following. So I thought, what the hell? I'm going to write them down. And then I thought, what the hell? I'm going to publish them on Medium. So I did. Okay. And it's turned out to be quite popular. Okay. I think, I don't know about you guys, but I presume you try to write, sensibly structured code. Well, so do I. And I think the key to it is to not try to invent that structure yourself, but to copy what the mainstream is doing. And the primary one is obviously doing the Angular style guide. Okay. And then after that, all bets are off, except I really do strongly feel that most serious projects should be using the Narwhal NX workspace. Okay. Do you guys have any sort of written standards for your teams or projects that you work on?
I think from my experience, it was quite Wild West, the previous place I worked at. So even basic stuff that you'd probably get grey hair from, like business logic in controllers, that kind of thing was being done. So it wasn't like out of the box stuff like you see with the John Popper stuff and you know all the stuff you listed here, where you've got separations of concerns with everything. It was more like, just whack it in there and get it done.
Yeah.
I think part of the problem is that they started off in AngularJS, and it was a hybrid app when I turned up, and I was still sort of working on AngularJS at the same time as Angular in the same app. So everything, different places, you had downgrade components and upgrade components, and there wasn't that much thought for getting things separated properly. But that's ideally what we would have done.
Well, as long as you're keeping that ideal, then you're
yeah, exactly. I know it's always tricky to swim against the tide.
Okay, this document goes on a bit, and I don't want to get bogged down in it too much, because I reckon it's a fairly good read, and it's linked off the website. So if you've got 4 minutes and you fancy just piling through that, and most in particular, because I am what's the word for it? Community orientated. I do take criticisms. I would appreciate if you guys read and then comment at the bottom. If you've got criticism, by all means say so. What you'll notice down here is that I'm actually talking about NgRx Entity again. Okay. Yeah, it's got all my favorite recommendations, but it is opinionated. For example, something that if Paul is back, he'd probably not appreciate so much is my recommendation that where is it? Sorry, it's not quite there. Visual Studio Code is the recommended IDE. Okay. Aha, Paul's there.
I am sorry. I've just had a delivery come to the door, so I can't respond to that. But I want to.
Sorry about that, Paul. Okay, we'll let him come back on that one. But anyway, yeah, I've got some things in there that are fairly obvious, but I've also got some things in there that are technically they're actually repeats of the Angular style guide. The stuff about component architecture, that's in the style guide. The only thing that isn't is the exception. Okay. But anyway, I'll let you have a read, and then you can comment the hell out of it and say, no, you're wrong, mate. Okay. That's me. And currently I've got 423 claps. Yeah. So I'm quite happy with that. Okay. If Paul comes back and wants to talk about, hey, let's talk about WebStorm. Come on. Okay. Now, I'm ready for an argument on this, Paul. Partly because I've had a drink, but also because I've actually had comments on this this Medium article that I've created. Okay, which you can link to from either the volatile notes up here, okay, which is there, or you can go to our meetup group webpage, which is here, okay, and there's a link to the Medium document here, Paul. Okay.
I actually read it, I don't know, yesterday or the day before.
Yes.
I'm not sure where it popped up, but yeah, I did read it already.
Wonderful. So why didn't you comment, Paul? I wanted you.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Did you realize it was me?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, wonderful.
I can't remember where I saw the link, but yeah, I knew you'd put it up.
Cool. because I know I've appeared in one of their sort of JavaScript roundup type email things that for readers who read about JavaScript. So anyway, I know you like WebStorm. The reason I recommend as Angular standards to use the IDE is because the compatibility with John Papa's Angular Essentials, okay, which also includes the NX console, right? And I believe that having that as a first-class citizen in your development environment means that you will use it more easily, as in more likely to use it. And using schematics to build as much of your code as possible forces you down the road of the best practices. And that's why I believe in it.
But you can run all those from the terminal, right?
Certainly you can. And if you're as quick to get on the terminal and use those commands, then you win. You're all right. And you can keep on your WebStorm.
I think, yeah, I mean, I don't mind what people use, really. I think I prefer WebStorm for a whole host of reasons, but within our team, I think I've managed to convince and convert a few people to WebStorm, and some people still use VS Code. But I would object to VS Code being called an IDE.
Oh,
it's a text editor, pretty much.
It's very close to that. I thought there was IDE. Is IDE supposed to be the intelligent one?
Well, integrated. Sorry, I'm eating now.
It's all right. You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, WebStorm for me, it has some great functionality, but one thing it really stands out for is, or something that crops up a lot, is refactoring capabilities. Really being able to recognize when you've moved something, or you have to make a huge refactoring of a particular module or something, really helps with that. As well as its ability to kind of scan the whole code base for errors of all different kinds. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind what people use, but that's WebStorm for life for me.
Yeah, sure, fair enough. And I knew I wouldn't convince you by showing you a line of text in a Medium document that's only got 423 claps. But there you go.
You had to try.
Yes. Okay. So I think that's enough self-congratulation. I think yeah, if you want to read it, you can. It's linked to from the shared sort of meetup site. Okay. The next thing I'd like to talk about before we close up for the evening is I've created a new operator called WithNextFrom that's based on WithLatestFrom, and I'm going to show you WithLatestFrom just in case for those who haven't met this RxJS operator. I think this is excellent, by the way. I think the power of what you can do with WithLatestFrom is wonderful. And the reason I like it is because very often in a scenario where I've got an observable event, I want to know what the current state of a bunch of other events or observable streams is doing. But the other thing that I like to do is call an API at the same time. So I get my event, okay, my original. So now I want to know what the result of an API request is at the same time as checking what the current state of several sort of subjects are, observable subjects. So I can get an instantaneous view of those, but I've got to wait for the API request. And this is something that WithLatestFrom doesn't necessarily cope with as well. Okay, it does do the job, it does do it, but there is a condition where it doesn't, and I'll show you that in a second. But the other thing about WithLatestFrom is that it doesn't mock very well using schematics generated unit tests, and I'd like to show you why. Okay, so I'll introduce you to why, and then I'm going to introduce you to my operator. All right, so let's see if I can get the right one. No, it's good. Oh, it's that one. There we are. And let's open this fellow up. Right, let's get rid of that because you don't need that. Okay, so here I've got a demo repo that there's links to in the various documents and websites. And this is a spec file with tests against using with WithNextFrom and with SwitchMap and with my new operator called WithNextFrom. Okay, and as you can probably guess, the WithNextFrom fails. And the reason is that I'm trying to do this mock here, okay, and that it doesn't accept a mock value because, excuse me, the provider for the actions is already initiated. So the effect is effectively created along with its dependent parameter observable streams that come in on the WithNextFrom parameters when you create the configure testing module command. Now, I think I fumbled that description, but did people get the idea there? Yeah, I've got one nod from Sal. I appreciate that. Thank you. And I've got a nod from Stephen. So the idea is that the WithNextFrom basically looks at all of the streams upon initiation. And inside an Angular unit test using schematics, because you use the configure testing module command, it means that all of the dummy values have to be inserted at this point. Okay, so all of your mock values have to be available on initialization, which is not best practice, rather than having them inside the unit test where you want to push them in. Okay, so that's why this particular unit test here fails. Conversely, interestingly, SwitchMap does not have this problem because SwitchMap only initiates its subscription to the secondary stream once it's got the value from the originator stream. So therefore, you've got an opportunity to mock it before that event arrives. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I think I made sense there. Now, most importantly, my unit test here will pass because this one is designed to be able to be mocked in the same way as SwitchMap, in that because we're only bothered about the next value instead of what was pre-existing, because WithNextFrom has to be aware of what was pre-existing, you can mock it. All right, and in the case of a subject or behavior subject, that value would automatically be the same value. So WithNextFrom and WithNextFrom would behave in the same way with selectors on NgRx stores, okay, because they're picking the same value. And it would only be in the case of other hot streams that you would get a different value because it would wait for the next event. I hope that I made sense there. Okay, so anyway, let's introduce you to WithNextFrom. And I think probably the best way, before I get into something code heavy, would you like me to run these unit tests, by the way? I probably can. That would be a sensible thing to start. So the demo is called demo. So let's see if I can actually do that. So the test demo. So that works. Now, these unit tests are in Jest, and you'll see one failed and the rest passed. Okay, and that was on the WithNextFrom because I couldn't mock it properly. And the unfortunate thing that it comes up with is because I never defined a value when the module was instantiated, I always get an undefined value, which is even more painful than just having a default value, if you like. But you can default it in the module initialization, but that's just bad practice. It's an anti-pattern. Conversely, the other way that you can deal with it with latest from is to just put it in a different kind of harness. Okay, so you can build a unit test that doesn't use the command, which is up here, the configure testing module, because you don't necessarily need to do it. You can just instantiate the effect on its own in its own harness and mock all of the values. However, that's not a schematic generated unit test, and I would argue that it's a slight anti-pattern. So therefore, I wouldn't bother with it. I want it fixed. I like I say, I really love the power of with latest from, but the unmockability, because I do write a lot of unit tests, I think that's a deal breaker. So that's why I wrote WithNextFrom. Okay, and this is my new operator here. All right, you can freely access it via GitHub, but most in particular, let's see if we can go back to the website. Okay, and you can go to it on npm if you wish. Okay, and it's there, and you can download and use it. Okay, that's a marbles diagram of it, and here's how it works. It basically says, here's the originator stream, waits for the next event, and then sticks them to the two results together as an output. Okay, next event comes along, waits for the next one, and sticks the two together. You'll see that they're slightly out of line because it's just my hand-drawn graphic, so I apologize for that. C never gets its own paired event because D comes along too quickly, so it automatically comes out with D3. Now, something important here is that the stream ended just after D fired, but my WithNextFrom, because you're more likely to use it in this condition than you are with latest from, automatically waits for 3 to arrive before it closes the stream. Okay, so there's some fairly complicated logic inside the operator here that does an in-flight check and then rezips a new output in order to give you an observable that completes after the originator has completed. Okay, and there you go. There's some usage. And what say you? Because I know, Paul, you like with latest from. What do you think about this?
Sorry, I've got my mouth full.
Sorry to interrupt your dinner. Maybe we should ask someone else. Do you use with latest from, Sal? No, haven't tried that one. Have you used zip at all? Maurice, are you there perchance?
You're right there, Tom.
Hello, mate.
Yeah, I've used zip, as you probably are familiar with.
Absolutely.
Some of my work. But in regards to the with latest from, I'm not really understanding the problem as it stands with the code. I know you've written tests, but like with the code and the patterns, I'm not really following in regards to the testing scenario. Like, why is it not testable, if that makes sense?
Oh, right. Okay, let's take you back to the code here, right? So if I come to the actual where it's generated here, so here it is in an effect, and we're going to use the with latest from here. So here's an example where we've got an effect that comes in with an action, okay, of type action, and then uses the with latest from operator to get a selected value from the selector of a list, okay? And then once it's got the result from that, it then uses both the action and the list as parameters for its next operation, which is to generate another action, okay? Now, the thing about with latest from is that it likes to keep a memory of the actions that have become, sorry, let me say that again. With latest from likes to keep a history of the events that have happened within its parameter streams, okay, since the beginning of time. And the beginning of time is when the subscription to the originator stream occurred. All right. And if I go back to the test harness, okay, the originator stream, which is this here, okay, instantiates with the configure testing module command. Okay, so it's instantiated within the before each rather than inside the it clause of your unit test. So therefore, you cannot mock a value inside the unit test for that with latest from parameter, because it was already being listened to the original stream when it was instantiated up here. Is that a bit more clear, Maurice, or should I try and say it another way?
No, I get what you're saying, but I'm just not sure to like why can't it be mocked within the it, like you're already mocking a code observable now.
Tom, will it work where you've got your effects and then you're getting your testbed.get?
Mm-hmm.
Just copy that line to just before your expect.
Yep.
Oh no, sorry, the other way around. So you could put the to effects within your it.
Oh, sorry. Let's do that again. So, say again. Where do you want it?
You have it as you had before, where you have your mock select there in your it, and then where you have your effects equals testbed.get. If you just put that basically where your cursor is now after you've, or sorry, just after the store spy.select. So it doesn't have to be within the before each, of course. So it can just go in the it.
I see. You're talking about instantiating right here.
Yeah, and I think that would probably pass the test.
Let's see if it does, because that would be mighty interesting. I've just turned that to a fit, so it does it on its own.
I'll caveat this with the fact that we don't use jest, so.
Well, it works the same way. Oh, there you go. Yeah, it doesn't happen. Okay, I'm gonna undo that. Okay, up there, and what I am going to do is show you where it does work. Okay, whoops. Oh, come on, don't hover. There we are. Hopefully this works, because it'll be embarrassing if it doesn't. There you go. So inserting it before the configure testing module will work. Oh, just a minute. I've got failed here. Where did that come from? Am I talking absolute rubbish? I think I am. I'm concerned I might have done it in the wrong place. Let's see if I can get it right. No, still failing. Ah, of course. Or not, of course. No, I've done something silly. I'm not quite sure why that is. I apologize. I'm going to have to leave it there. But yeah, there's a chicken and egg situation going on there that I haven't figured out. But yeah, previously when I've used Karma, because I've done this in Karma as well, exhaustively. Yeah, if you set it up here before the initialization, it works. So it's just something to do with my syntax, and I just haven't figured it out. Okay, but anyway, yeah, my feeling is that Angular is in need of a WithNextFrom that effectively mimics the with latest from behavior, but provides the benefit of being able to be mockable, and most in particular to provide the output the final output after the originator stream has finished in order to get the results from the others. Because in the condition where there is only one event in your originator stream and you've used the pipe operator first or take one, okay, then the originator stream will close and will not fire the third one using WithNextFrom, okay. But sometimes you only want your stream to trigger once, because you might want to just paint your component once and not worry about updates. Okay, that's my thoughts. Has anybody else got any thoughts, any criticisms of my stance? I appreciate them. In that case, I'll take it that I've done an okay job. All right, thank you. Before we disappear, has anything, has anybody got anything else they'd like to talk about Angular-wise? No, I think we're good. It's got pretty late. So thank you for coming, everybody. Next time, previously we've had about almost, it's actually a bit more than 2 months since the last meetup. But Max and I have definitely got more material coming that will allow us to do a meetup much sooner. I'm hoping you guys might be up for one within a month to 6 weeks, because I've got a bunch of stuff that I can do about Cypress. I know that Max has got 2 subjects that I'm deeply interested in. His view model thing that he was going to talk about this time round, and there was something else really cool, and unfortunately I've forgotten it. But yeah, take it from me, it was good. So yeah, we've got some other stuff. Has anybody else got a desire to present? Or if they have, maybe they could ping me at some point, and I'd really appreciate you reaching out to me with a suggestion. Okay. Anyway, thanks everybody for coming. Oh, Maurice, you unmuted. Have you got something?
I was going to say thanks, but yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming. All right.
Thanks very much, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Sal. And I'll take it. Oh, there, Eleanor's file there. Thank you, and thank you to you. Pav, I'm hoping that maybe one day you might want to do a presentation too, but I'm not going to press you. I just thought you might like to experience the pattern here and see if you're comfortable.
Looking at you, I think I would actually like to, because I think it's just joy to teach and kind of see how other people react to it and everything. I just don't know about the time, so I don't want to declare anything publicly and then say, oh, sorry, I can't. But even looking at what you've done, I always wanted maybe to gather resources for 2 things. I think one I was explaining was this native script with Angular for a mobile app, and the other thing, something about testing. I think everyone gets frustrated if testing takes you longer than actually writing the code that you're trying to do, and I think sometimes it can get ridiculous that you can actually write 3 times more tests than the actual code, which delivers some kind of a feature or some money, makes money for the business. But I think getting some good patterns for testing, as you mentioned with Cypress, with Jasmine, with Jest, creating reusable patterns for copy paste, I think that will benefit the community greatly. And to some degree, I would like to participate because I think it's nice. So,
wonderful.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it was fantastic, Tom. Really.
Thanks, Pav. Really appreciate you coming. Okay. Oh, and I just seen Paul mentioned that you use TS Mockito, and yeah, I think if you fancy having a chat about Mockito sometime, maybe Paul, when I do the Cypress thing, maybe that would dovetail really nicely if you fancy doing 20 minutes, half an hour on it.
Like Pav, I'm happy to, but I don't want to necessarily commit to doing it within a month.
Understood. Understood.
Also, I don't know if you can use it with Jest or not. We use Jasmine and Karma, so it might not be useful to you either.
Oh, well, I've only played with Jest for fun, just simply because I wanted some runs on the board. yeah, I've only used Karma in serious production anger, so because it's mainstream is still the primary test engine for, or library for Angular, is the one that's still approved. But then again, they still approve of TS-Lint, and that's deprecated. So says a lot.
Angular 10, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they've started to go over to ESLint, haven't they?
Yeah, I think it's with Angular 10 they're planning to have ESLint as the kind of de facto standard.
Yeah, I'm going to take a closer look at what's going on there, because I started to, I've done a fair amount of work with both, and I'd like to sort of understand their direction of travel. I presume it's with ESLint, so that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks for your time, guys. I really appreciate you doing such a late one. I didn't mean to go on this late. Okay. You have a good one, and I'll be in touch.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers. All right.
Thanks.